Welcome all lovely regular callers who come onto the call. Good to see you all. And for any newcomers, welcome too. Hopefully you will become regulars too. So we do this monthly call first Wednesday of every month. And the format is a very simple format, which is that I answer any questions on quantum touch, spirituality, health, healing, anything that's coming up for you that you would want to ask about. And then we do some healing for the second part. Now, normally I do about 15-20 minutes for those who are regulars, but this month, for some reason, it just felt really right to offer 30 minutes. So we're going to do a half and half, so 30 minutes of questions and 30 minutes of healing. So slightly longer today. I've got a couple of questions that have been asked ahead of time, so I'm going to start by answering those questions. And then if you want to ask a question, the call is being recorded, so if you don't want to be on screen, then you can either put a question in the chat box and I'll see the questions in the chat box. If you don't mind being on screen, or you don't mind just having your audio, then you can take off your camera and just ask audio. You can either put your hand up or digitally put your hand up if you know how to do that, and ask any kind of question. And then we will do 30 minutes of quantum touch healing. And I'll just do a little walkthrough so we can all set an intention and things like that. And I'll walk through that bit when we get to it. So we'll start with two questions. Norman, I saw the email you sent me, so I've got your question there. And I've got a question from Diane, who I thought would be on the call, but I can't see her, so I will answer that one first, and she can watch the recording. And also just a few announcements before I forget, because once we get into the healing side, I always forget to mention it. And that's to say that the next Quantum Touch Level 1 course that I'm running will be in April. So that's the 19th to the 22nd, Monday through to Thursday afternoons only, 3 till 6:30. And the early bird price runs out 29th of March. The other thing to mention is that I keep promising it, but I swear to God, tomorrow it will be up on YouTube, is the second part of the How to Solve All Your Problems video. So I've done part 1, and I did a video a little while ago about how to solve all your problems. And then some sort of a deeper understanding of that came in recently. That's really, really helped me. So I'm going to do a part 2 of how to solve all your problems. Because it helped me to solve my problem. And that is not to label everything as problems. That's the key hint there. Don't label things as problems and you won't have any. But there's a deeper dive into that, and that video I've been meaning to do for a very long time, and I will be putting that on YouTube tomorrow, finally. There is another video that is in the pipeline, and if I manage to get to it tomorrow, I will do. Otherwise, it will be the end of the week or next week. And that is about sensitivity to Wi-Fi signals, because I had an issue with that a little while ago, and I resolved it in a very, very easy way. And I resolved it because I realized a great misunderstanding I had. It was a spiritual misunderstanding. And I resolved it very, very fast, very, very quickly, but it had been bothering me for a while and it had interrupted my sleep. And so I want to do a video on that as well, to explain how simple an issue it is. And it relates not just to energetic kind of electricity and Wi-Fi and electro kind of sensitivity, but it relates to quite a lot of different things as well. So it's quite an important video that I'm going to be doing, and I really want as many people to see it as possible, because I think it's really helpful. And it was from a misunderstanding of language yet again. I'm always talking about the misunderstanding and how language sets us up it doesn't really set us up well for the kind of spiritual growth, because we're trying to do something, and it's actually language and how we frame things that sometimes get in the way. And this was a misunderstanding of language yet again. So just to let you know, those are coming up. So I'll get to the questions. So Diane sent in a question, and it was a really lovely question, and it's a subject I really enjoy talking about. So it's a really good question, and I'll read it out because she's not on the call. And it was, how do you get to the state of acceptance? How do you get to the state of acceptance easily and not get ratty or demoralized and pushy when things fall into the dust again? Okay, so that's a really, really good question, and it is something which I think is worth sort of going over in a bit of detail. And it's the first thing is to say that if you want to change anything in life, the first two things you need are awareness and acceptance. So acceptance is what I often say is the doorway to all the good stuff, but it's also the doorway to creating any kind of change, really. And the reason for that is that people often misunderstand the true nature of acceptance, because they think if I accept something in my life, it encourages it, or I condone something. So if we have a person, a situation, or an experience, a health experience, we think that if we say we accept it, it's like we're encouraging it and we're bringing more of it in. And it's quite the contrary. So what acceptance does is it accepts what actually is. Now, we are in a world of form, a physical world of form. If something, someone, or an experience is in our experience currently, it was created a while ago. Even if it's showing up now, it didn't just miraculously appear. It has been created in the subatomic level, or the, if you want to say, the unseen level, and now it's in our experience. So resisting what is is a bit futile. So in a way, the only thing we can do, or the only sensible thing to do, is to actually accept it. And when we accept that it's showing up, it doesn't mean we love it. It's not that we adore it. If we're in pain, we might not love it, but we can accept it. And there is a level of surrender in that too. So the quickest way through to changing anything is acceptance. Because when we resist, or we push against something, or deny it, if you deny something, how can you change it if you're denying it, right? If you're pushing against it, we're using force as well. So we can sometimes with our minds really kind of push to try and get what we want, but that's really a manipulation. So like I often say, like resistance is of the mind and acceptance is of the heart. So when you start activating heart or spirit, you're actually activating a more powerful thing than your mind. And it's your mind that wants to resist, and it's your mind that wants to hold on to an emotion or a feeling or resentment or blame or judgment. And that's all of the mind. So when we activate acceptance, we're actually activating the more powerful part of ourselves. So the way for me, the way I always say is that if there is something in your life that you don't prefer, and that is to first be aware of that, and then to kind of commit to this idea of acceptance. It's like, once we commit to this idea that it's an inevitability that we're going to just accept it, even if at the moment, at the time you think I can't accept this, if you know the end goal has to be really acceptance in order to get through it easier, then you kind of say, well, I want it to be easy. I want this to be more graceful. Therefore, I'm going to choose acceptance because it's best for me, not because it helps anybody else, but because actually this is the best way to go through this. So there's a commitment there as well. And so Diane's question was sort of, what do you do when you kind of fall down at the accepting part? And my answer to that is dust yourself off, get back up and go again. You know, sometimes we have to practice these things until we can embody it. But just because you may not have sort of succeeded the first time. You just keep going. It's a practice until we get good at it. And then eventually what happens is that, you know, your mind sort of realizes there's no point in resisting it. We kind of take acceptance as our first choice. We've committed to it. It's our first choice. We accept it. And then we can move on to try and change anything we want to change or improve on any situation. So hopefully, Diane, that's a very detailed answer for you. And second question was from Norman. Now, I know you've got your audio on today, Norman. So do you want to ask the question yourself? Or would you like me to read it out from the email?
I've forgotten what it said.
Okay. Okay. So Norman was asking about, am I able to talk or communicate with other souls who are dead and living, both of those? How far back in time do cells go? So the short answer is yes, I can, but often I choose not to. And there's a very different classification between what I would say is which kind of souls I would speak to. So when people have just passed over, they've just left their lives and they're this body in this incarnation. I have often spoken to those who have just recently departed. There is a bit of a window where you can still speak to them. And I speak to them for loved ones who ask, is my loved one okay? They've just passed away, and I check in, and the answer is always, they're amazing, they feel brilliant. But I do that, and I've done that when my father passed away too. So yes, I can speak to them. Then once a certain amount of time has passed, then the souls, if they go to the higher levels, there's less language available at the higher realms, so you can't really talk to them. That's why if you go to any kind of mediumship or spirituality, Church of Spirits, spiritualist church, they have guides, they work with the guides, and the guides bring those souls through from higher realms. I don't do that. I choose not to do that, and it's not something that my life's work is about, so I don't do it. And then there are those souls who haven't gone to the light, who have passed over, they haven't gone to the light, they're hanging around in the lower levels, and I work with them only to help them go to the light, resolve anything for them, but I don't work with them, I don't actively communicate them, because if they haven't gone to the light, there's usually quite a negative feeling about them. There's something that's unresolved. There is something whereby sometimes they are quite negative and they won't let go of this earthly life and go to the higher realms. So I only do it in a session for somebody if I need to. But apart from that, that's the only time I would do that, talking to those at the lower levels. I did a mediumship course by mistake many years ago. A friend was running a course and I thought it was speak to your guides. It wasn't, it was a mediumship course. I'd been very, very ill for about 4 years. I had no strength in my aura, no boundaries, no nothing. And passed over souls came in and they kind of took over, and it was a very scary experience, and I didn't have anyone to help me with that. And so I decided that time that wasn't the right thing for me. Now I'm totally fine. Now I have absolute control over it, but there are certain things that are not in my life path. So therefore, and it's not part of my job to work with, it's not my sole purpose. So I don't. But can I? Yes, to a certain degree. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Do you see these souls in a form, or are they just ethereal?
If you're working with them, usually I just see them as a silhouette. I don't see them in anything. I see them as a silhouette. And you can work with a lot of people, living or dead, on the energetic level, and you don't really see them, but you can ask questions to kind of get who they are. So are they male, are they female, what's their relationship to you, and things like that. But like I said, I don't actively go searching for it. It's only if something needs to be resolved, it shows up in a healing session and it needs to be resolved, then I work with it.
So how far back can you go to the spirit?
See, I don't think of it like that. I think of it more in terms of they're either in the higher realms and they've gone to the higher realms, or they're in the lower levels. But if you're like past lives, you can work with as many past lives that haven't been resolved, and that can go back many generations into whole of human history if you really needed to. And that's past lives. But in terms of, because I don't work with past over souls particularly in that same way. I couldn't say how far it would go back. A medium would talk about it in a very different way to the way I talk about it, because I don't work with, I'm not a medium in that sense. Okay. All right, now I did see a question from, I think it was Alice. Let me see. Yes. Okay, so Alice is asking, there are the physical and the energetic parts of our body parts, yeah. What happens when a body part is surgically removed? Is there something that would be of benefit that could be done for the energetic part that is left? Okay, that's a good question. What happens when you take it out? I'm going to ask Elizabeth. So for those who don't know, I have a guide called Elizabeth, who I ask a lot of questions to. and I never really pondered this question. So I'll ask Elizabeth for you, Alice. What happens when a body part is surgically removed? Is there something that would be benefit that is left? Yeah, I mean, I can guess at what you would do, but let me just check in with Alice. Give me one, with Elizabeth, give me 1 sec. So it's a really interesting question, Alice, and what Elizabeth is saying, and I can kind of guess that as well, is that when we take something out on a physical level, there is sort of a inference of disharmony within ourselves, and there's also an element of the shadow, the things we don't like about ourselves. And so it has these two elements of what we can't face about ourselves and what is out of harmony with ourselves. And so what Elizabeth is saying, and it's what I would have sort of guessed at as well, is that when it comes to taking something out surgically on an energetic level, the key thing is to bring everything in the body back into harmony, balance, and total like wholeness, acceptance. So on an energetic level, you can still be whole, even if the physical part has been taken out. Does that make sense? So it's not really on a, it's okay if the physical has gone, but on the internal, it's important to feel whole and to feel in harmony. And usually when something is taken out, there's a sense of disharmony and it needs to be taken out to create harmony without it. But actually, there's nothing that really needs to be taken out of the body usually, because every part is needed. It just needs to be resolved and brought back into harmony and into love. Does that answer the question, Alice? Yeah, Okay. I think there was a second part to your question, was there? Okay. Christine, yes, it is. The call is recorded. I'll be putting it up on YouTube tomorrow. But if you don't see it there, then on the monthly call, on the monthly newsletter, I usually include it in there as well. So in case you miss it, like you'll see it again in the monthly newsletter. But it will be on YouTube tomorrow as well. Okay, so Alice, I think the second part was about the energetics of the diaphragm under the lungs. Is that right? Can you say a bit more about that?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been having some problems. Like I have the problem with my back that you know about. And it's mostly when I'm standing. I thought it was panic, but I'm not sure if my diaphragm is just not working right when I'm standing. You know, when I'm standing, I just become out of breath and everything seems wobbly. So I was just wondering if, like I've had broken ribs before, I've had other things. I wonder if they've messed with my diaphragm, either on the physical or the energetic level.
Okay, you happy for me to check in and have a look?
Oh, I'd love to, thank you.
All right, give me 1 sec. So there's nothing wrong per se, but there is an imbalance between the left and the right side. So let me see. The right side feels more kind of squished up. It feels a bit higher, and so it might be causing a tension or a sense of imbalance, which might be the cause of that wobbliness. And so it's really about just maybe some relaxing into it and breathing deeply, and with the intention of balancing I was going to say balancing the diaphragm, but I'm not going to say that, because the feeling tone is balancing out. It feels fear-based, because it feels like it's about taking in the breath of life fully. And on the right side, it's feeling scrunched up. And on the left side, it's feeling quite nice and open. So on the right side, there's a tension there. And I think that's more about breathing in the joy of life, or breathing in life to its fullest. Does that resonate?
So could that be the masculine and feminine again?
It makes sense that it is, but I'll check it. It is, but it's also about the it's also a bit like the brain hemispheres, and it's a bit sort of like the creative and the nurturing, and then it's the practical and the, I mean, I don't know, I kind of like about to say practical and the boring, but that's just my interpretation. But it's the things you have to do versus the things you love to do, but they both make up the importance of creating the life that you want and having the life that you deserve. So,
and which would be which for your lungs? Is it the same as your brain?
So in this particular situation, your left is unscrunched up and your right is scrunched up.
And my left represents
The
things I have to do, or the things I want to do?
No, the left side represents the stuff that you love to do and are happy to do,
Okay.
and the right side represents the stuff that you're resisting.
Okay. Yes, I see that. Yes, I'm kicking and screaming, doing the things I don't want to do. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but so the thing is, with the stuff we don't want to do, we don't like to do, because it's not our forte, or maybe it's not what we consider to be fun. It's
Right.
still an essential part of
Mm.
getting our work out into the world, and it's having
Yeah.
ourselves be seen and everything else. So it is important, but we resist it, and then we kind of, it's that resistance that causes that tension. So this is
Okay.
another great example, going back to the acceptance thing. So when we accept the fact that we just have to do it, and we don't resist it, then we can just kind of get on with it. But the more we resist it, actually, we just start to feel bad. Everything goes a bit wonky, right? And so
I get it. Yeah.
I think there's just some space for some deep breaths and some relaxation and just acceptance, because acceptance will just make the path easier.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, let me just check the chat room, because we're up to past. Okay, let's see. So okay, so Tanya's got some questions about quantum touch. So I'll answer these, and then if there's any other questions, just because I sort of promised we would do sort of 30 minutes of healing today, is that if there are any other questions, and we won't obviously have time for that now, if you put them into the chat box, then tomorrow when I load this recording onto YouTube, I will do a recording and I will answer any questions that haven't been answered. So I just put that on, like, unanswered questions as a video on YouTube as well. So, or you can always come back on to next month's call if you want to have a sort of a more interactive answer. Okay, so Tanya's question was about quantum touch. So in quantum touch, one of the key parts is a breathe. We have sort of 5 different breaths in quantum touch, and Sanya's kind of is asking that because we're focusing on the breath so much, that you can't really do all the other techniques as well. So my answer to that is that you don't have to have the breathing be perfect, okay? There are some quantum touch instructors. I know that Tyler does this thing. Tyler Odyssey, who's a quantum touch instructor, kind of shows you how well you're breathing in your body, how much your energy is flowing. But I'm not of that school, because for the exact reason that you have just said, Tanya, which is a very good point, you can't concentrate on everything at the same time, right? So the intention goes a long way. So as long as the energy is coming up through the body, which is what's happening when you're doing the breathing and the sweeping, and the breathing is most of the time you're doing the maintenance breaths. So 4-4-2-6. Those breaths are I would just practice those breaths outside of doing healing. That's how I did it. And that is just get used to that breath, because after a while, it just becomes subconscious. It'll pick your mind will pick it up. The more you do it, it'll just do that breath without having to think very much. And then the faster breaths that we use, they're used periodically. They're not used all the time. They're used during the different times in the session. And so the way I look at it is that once you've done quantum touch a few times, so after you've learned level 1, after a while, you don't have to really think too much about your breathing and your sweeping. The breathing and the sweeping is really important, because the sweeping keeps you grounded, and the breathing is important because it helps move lots of energy. But if you focus too much on the technique, what happens is your attention moves from the person you're working with to yourself and the technique. So intention, attention, and breathing are the key parts of quantum touch. Now, if your attention is on the technique, it's not on the person you're working with. So my advice on this is always focus on the client, set your intention, and then start the breathing and the sweeping before you start working with the client. So you've kind of got into the hang of it. And then don't worry too much, because what happens is the mind gets in the way. It really kind of just gets in the way. And, you know, really, quantum touch is a heart-based vibration technique. And when the mind gets in and it's going, am I breathing and am I counting and am I doing this and I'm adding this in? That's all the mind stuff. And really, as long as you're in a place of, you know, you're doing this from a place of love, you set an intention, then the breathing and the sweeping will just fall into place. It's just a matter of a bit of practice. So I was always practicing, you know, I'm doing the washing up, you practice the maintenance breath. After a while, your body kind of just knows what you're doing. It goes, oh, we're doing quantum touch now. And it just kind of gets on with it. So I'd say don't be too worried about the technicality of it. Okay.
If you're doing quantum touch distant healing, does the person receiving have to be aware that you're healing them?
Do they have to be aware? No, they don't. I think it's nice if they do know that you are aware. At the end of the day, what you're doing is it's no different than if you say, can I pray for you? Or, you know, can I send you some happy vibes? That's all you're really doing. If the person doesn't want to receive it, they just send it back. They won't take it. Because quantum touch is based on the fact that, and we'll get onto it now, because I did promise half an hour of healing. Quantum touch is really based on, it's on love for a start. And the inner healer is the one who does the healing. It's the person's inner healer. As a practitioner, you bring the vibration, you bring the energy. That person then takes that energy and their inner healer does the healing. If that person doesn't want to receive it, then they won't take it. So similarly, you can send it, and if people don't want it, they're not going to receive it. So I think it's nice, because I think most people, if they're feeling vulnerable or if they're in pain or they've got a condition and they feel someone cares enough to offer some loving vibration, then it's a nice thing to know. But love isn't it. Love is quantum touch is like everything else with love. You can't force it on someone. You can't force someone to receive healing. Therefore, you know, you have to sort of ask yourself, why wouldn't the person? If you think the person won't want to receive it, then maybe they don't want to receive it. You can send it, but they may not receive it. So, but do they need to know? No, not especially. You don't have to tell them. But I think it's nice for people to know that you care enough to want to offer something out of love and caring. Okay, so I'm going to put everyone on mute now so that we can go to the healing part. Any questions that I have missed, I will answer tomorrow on a video. Norman, you seem to be resisting my mute. Can you mute yourself, please? Just because otherwise you'll come up in the recording every time we make any kind of noise, you'll come up in the recording. Yeah, so just put yourself on mute if you can. Ironic that we're actually asking you to be on mute. Normally we're trying to get you off mute.
Well, I've muted it. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you still. Oh, let me try ask. Oh no, you did it. Okay, perfect, you did it. Right. So we're going to do 30 minutes. So we'll go a little bit over. If you have to leave, you can do. It'll be on the recording. The recording we'll still have the healing on it anyway. The way it's intentioned and the way it's set up is that even the video has the healing included. So for those who haven't been on the call, so those who have been on the call before, you will know this is quite routine for you. But for those who are new to the call, you will set an intention for what you wish from the healing energy. So you will set an intention, I will set an intention for the group, and then additionally, during the course of the healing, I will go through and set another personalized intention as well. How do we set an intention? We set it in the present tense only, so not in the future, otherwise it sets up a intention of something and we're putting out into the future when we actually want healing now. So the healing is always, and the intention is set in the present tense, and we always state what we want, not what we don't want. Okay. So you will set an intention. I will set an intention silently. The healing will be for about 30 minutes. And I probably at some point will add in some sound healing, because I always add in sound healing because it just really amplifies the vibration. If you're sensitive to energy, therefore, just be warned. I will say before I do any sound healing, vocal sound healing, I also have my tuning fork, so you may hear that too. And yeah, I think that's it. So we'll start, and then if there's any, and then at the end we'll just sort of say our goodbyes. If anyone wants to add any comments or comment about the healing or anything they experience, or ask a question about what they experienced, then those who want to stay on the call for that can do. Otherwise, that will be the end of the call. Okay. Right. So if you'd like to set an intention for yourself, what would you like in the present tense? So you will hear me, I'll be breathing, it's quantum touch breathing. We're doing different breaths. There'll be some sound healing, but other than that, it'll be mostly quiet. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of sound healing, some vocal healing. And we're going to do some more sound healing. This is usually quite loud, so if you, just to warn you, I'm trying to sit a little bit further back. the sound of 528 love frequency, and that will signal the end of the healing part of the call. Okay. So if anybody would like to, I know people are quite shy at the end, and there's no pressure to say or do anything. But if anybody would like to share anything that they experienced, or anything that came up for them, or any question that came up during the healing, then please do. This is an opportunity for you to do that now.
That was lovely. I felt it very much in my sacral and root.
Mm-hmm.
I felt it all buzzing around in there.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely. Heather, did you want to say something?
Yes, I did. This is the first time that I've joined your call. I am from Ottawa, Canada. And what I wanted to say to you is the intensity of the healing energy was really amazing. I came in especially for healing of my hands. I have eczema on them quite badly, and today they were just burning very, very intensely. They are they're much more calmed down now than they were when I first came to the call. So I just want to thank you and thank all of you who are here at the call. It was really a pleasure to be here, and I hope to see you again.
That's so lovely. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you so much, Heather. And yeah, I mean, we do this call every month. So we'd love to see you again. And, you know, today we did sort of 30 minutes, which is longer than usual. But even when we do 15 minutes, you know, it still has an effect. You know, it doesn't seem like a very long amount of time. But still, it does have an effect. So I'm glad you felt it. And you got a benefit from it. That's exactly what this call is here for. So I'm so pleased about that. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anybody else who wanted to add anything? No? Okay. So I can see that there are comments in the chat box, so I don't want to keep you, because we sort of ran over a little bit, so I don't want to keep you any longer tonight. But if there are questions that are unanswered in the chat box, I will answer them separately on video tomorrow. So if you're on the newsletter, monthly newsletter, I'll also add it on there in case you missed it anywhere else, or you can go to the website and it'll be on there too. Okay, everyone, so thank you so much everyone for coming, and thanks Bill, and I will hopefully see you next month. Thanks everyone, thank you. Bye.